proud to be here today. I am the president of the Ohio Vapor Trade Association and extremely fortunate and lucky to be in that position. I was invited down here to speak about battery safety. So without any further ado, we'll get into that. I'm going to introduce the person to my left, your right. This is Shane Thompson from Battery Solutions, Senior Vice President of Battery Solutions, located in Washington, D.C. And the reason for him being here is he's 100% supportive of what our mission is with one of the things that we're focusing on as a part of battery safety and being 360-degree advocates of the industry. But first, let's get back to basics. So as far as battery safety goes, there's one thing every vapor should understand, and if you're a responsible shop owner, you have to teach this to every customer that walks into your door, and that is Ohm's Law. Is there anybody in here that does not know what Ohm's Law is? That's a good answer. So, what is Ohm's Law? Ohm's Law is a formula used basically to calculate the relationship between voltage, current, and resistance in your coils. It basically tells you what you're allowed to run without your device blowing up, putting too much pressure on the battery, which then causes injury, which they talked about earlier in the insurance piece. So with the migration to pod systems that we're all seeing in other type devices, do we really need to understand what Ohm's Law is? Absolutely. You never need to stop learning about the basics of this industry because you never know when you're going to need it. So who needs to be safe with batteries? One of the biggest opportunities to become 360-degree stewards of our industry is addressing battery safety and care. Anybody know what this number is right here? 195. That represents vaping battery explosions from 2009 to 2016, December 31st. Yeah, December 31st. That's a lot of injured people, potentially. A lot of lawsuits coming back to the shops that are selling these products. Two of the biggest occurrences, there were 61 loose battery issues, people leaving them in their pocket, and 60 of them that vented while they were in use. I can speak on this because one of our stores is actually in a lawsuit where this happened. Battery vented, blew the guy's jaw off, and now he has to have it wired shut. Both of these are, however, extremely preventable, and there's a lot of ways that we can do that, which we'll talk about here in the next slide. Anybody know what 133 is? Just off the top of your head? Obviously, it's related to that first issue. 80 of these injuries that were out there were moderate, which means persons having to have treatment or an emergency room visit. So think about that. We as the industry didn't explain clearly enough to 133 people over the last couple years how to properly use the devices, or they weren't listening to us. So we need to make sure that we slow down enough when we're talking about safety to know that they understand. 38 of those were severe, which required a hospital stay. Again, I just touched on this person that blew off his jaw and had to have his mouth wired shut. I mean, this is serious stuff, folks. These devices could be little pipe bombs if we're not taking care of them and using them correctly. So some suggestions we have for battery safe handling. Only sell batteries with liability forms and that are insured. And I only know of 2 batteries in the industry right now that are that way. You've got the Radio Shack batteries, which are offered through Vapor Beast, and you've got the Ohm, I think it's Ohm Wrecker, that is offered by a couple of the folks down here, one of them being T.D. Bowen and his group through Moon Mountain Vapor. So if you guys haven't visited them, check them out. What that liability insurance form does for you is it saves your ass in case there's a lawsuit. You can track it all the way back to the manufacturer, and the onus is off of you as the shop owner. All the other batteries are not that way currently. When using multiple batteries, you must tell the consumer to always have them married. Married means basically buying it, charging it at the same time, putting it in the device at the same time, using it till it's emptied, recharging them together always. You don't want to ever put a different battery in with another different battery because you don't know the discharge rates at that point in time. Always store loose batteries or used batteries in battery cases. And there's multiple different options. I learned about a new one today. But you have a plastic battery case, which we're all familiar with. And if you don't have an option to get those, you can look at the CASA website or email board@casa.com. They have them available there. I would love for you to take care of them and order them from them because CASA obviously is a consumer advocacy group for all of us that protects the consumers. You also have a silicone rubber sleeve that would go over the whole entire battery. And then I learned today there's an actual rubber cap that you just place on one end of the battery, which keeps it from contacting both sides if you do put them in your pocket. But we don't want that to happen. So again, I just kind of touched on this. Don't lose your battery. Leave your batteries in your pocket, purse, or a bag so they can roll around. Again, not being protected, coming in contact with 2 other metal surfaces, and then you have an issue. Do not overcharge your batteries. So don't leave them in the charger overnight unattended. There was an issue down in Florida where that happened, and it burnt the gentleman's house down, and he unfortunately was perished in the fire. Replace your batteries. They recommend every 6 months. Again, that's a pretty solid recommendation coming from the battery industry, that after that 6-month time frame, the discharge rates will not be the same, and you are putting yourself in jeopardy and those around you. Do not use batteries with a ripped or torn wrapping. We've kind of known that for a while. If you see that happening, make sure you're suggesting buying battery wraps. And there's a ton of things on YouTube that actually show you how to rewrap those. If the customer's not feeling that, take it upon yourself and rewrap them for them. Do not leave batteries in your car. This exposes them to extreme temperatures, heat and cold. Again, both of those could ignite an explosion, and now you've lost your car and whatever else may be in that car. Plus, you're looking at a lawsuit because it's probably going to catch the car next to him on fire and that car on fire. Just don't do it. Another thing you can do is make a battery safety tip and fact sheet to give to your consumers when they are in the store. There's nothing wrong with explaining to them, hey, one more time, let's look for batteries that are ripped. Do not put them in your pocket. Do not put them in your purse unless they are protected. This, again, is reinforcing the fact that we have to be 360-degree stewards of our industry and stop the foolishness and educate. That's what this industry is all about. Anybody familiar with what UL 8139 is? It's a safety standard that basically evaluates the electrical and the battery systems of vaping devices, making sure that they are safe for us. And this just started here in the last year. The development of UL 8139 also addresses specific fire safety concerns. Basically, if the battery starts venting, it'll shut it off, kill it while it's in motion of venting or exploding, keeping you safe once again. And this is also this issue was raised by the National American Fire Association, so that's kind of where we're at. All UL certified e-cigarettes and ENDS products receive a certification of compliance along with the holographic product label that actually identifies what's going on, that this is a UL certified product. UL is obviously a leading global science company that announced in October that Joytech was the very first battery to get this standard in the industry. And what's really sad about that, we cannot sell that product here in the United States because it was developed in the United States, brought to the market after August 8th, 2016. So in a sense, the FDA is now putting us at risk because we couldn't advance technology enough to be safer and put this safe product out on the market. And that's kind of where we're at in the industry with this. Something that we've done to even further our battery safety piece is adopt a recycling program, which we're going to talk a little bit about that, and then he's going to go into, Shane's going to go into a lot of what's going on in the recycling industry. But what we're doing is we put these buckets in the store. And if you'd like one of these, you can contact me, you can contact Dolores or Nick. We can put you in touch with the rep to order them directly from them. We get a discount being in the advocacy piece through FSFA, through OHVTA, through VTA. It's a $10 savings on the bucket. You get a certificate of reclamation that you can use when you're meeting with your state representatives to show them that you are being good, safe stewards of the industry, and you're trying to protect all these potential harmful chemicals and cells going into the landfills. We offer a 10% discount on a new purchase if the customer brings the batteries in and puts them in that container. Again, we're encouraging safety, putting it at the forefront, wanting to make sure everybody understands this is the best thing to do. So what can we do as industry? We need to make our industry safer. We need to act smarter. We need to be better, and we need to be more conscientious of what we're doing and speaking in a forward-thinking motion. What can we do to be environmentally smart? Offer this program from Battery Solutions, which, again, you can get that through Jennifer Zalecki, and I'll give you her information, or you can stop by and see Nick, Dolores, or I. And I'm going to turn it over to my friend over here, Shane, who came all the way from D.C. He is, like I said, he's the Senior Vice President of what, marketing? Or of the company, of Battery Solutions. He's going to talk about what's going on in the battery industry with the landfills.
Thanks, James. Appreciate the introduction and really appreciate the opportunity to be here with you today. I think you're a great advocate for the industry, and the programs that you're pushing are really, I think, going to help the industry go where it wants to go, and we're happy to be part of that by providing the recycling and hopefully a safety piece. So real quick, Battery Solutions is a battery recycling company, which when I tell people that's what we do, they're like, really, that's a thing? You've It's a full-time gig. It's actually, if you think about it, batteries are everywhere in your life now. We're all generally holding one or two at any given time, anywhere. So in the products that we use, you're seeing more and more of that. So Battery Solutions has grown from a small family-owned company back in the early 90s. We also, in addition to the small batteries that we all carry here, we also recycle the large batteries that power data centers or automotive vehicles. So we're a growing concern, and we've been doing a good job, and part of that has been acknowledged at a local level. We've gotten some acknowledgement from the local media, but we've also, last year we were a finalist in the World Economic Forum's Circular Awards, which is a group of awards that you can see there that we were a finalist with some other small companies like Google and Apple and IKEA. So it's nice to get acknowledged when you're doing a good job. So this graph just shows that there's a lot of batteries out there, and that, you know, over the last 4 years or so, we've added about 8 million pounds to the total that we're collecting, and we're hoping that the vaping industry will provide us with more pounds. So real quick, the primer on the batteries is, you know, there's batteries that have a neutral value. You know, the question would come up, well, why does it cost me to get rid of the batteries? And the reason for that is some batteries have materials that are reusable. Some batteries don't. Our battery pail is designed to be all-inclusive. So even though the predominant chemistry that you're going to see as a shop owner is going to be the lithium ion that powers the device, the kit actually works for, you know, the batteries that would come out of your exit signs, the batteries that would come out of your remote control. You can put everything in there and know that they're going to be recycled properly from an environmental standpoint. So this is a super busy slide, but it's actually kind of cool. This was kind of what James wanted me to cover, kind of 2 points. You know, one is the environmental impact of recycling and why we should all recycle, and how that's part of a much bigger conversation called the circular economy. And then the other part was to talk about the safety ramifications, and the byproduct from responsible recycling can be, you can be safer. So what this slide shows is basically there was a Russian economist, Kondratiev, and he went back through history and developed these waves of economic growth, and we're now coming out of the fifth Kondratiev, which was information technology, and a lot of people believe that the sixth economic wave will be centered around sustainable development. And what sustainable development is it's basically saying that we're going to be adding 9 billion, our population is moving towards 9 billion, so we'll be adding about 3 billion new middle-class consumers. The way that we consume natural resources, that 3 billion may not sound like a lot, but based on current consumptive patterns here in the United States, we would need roughly about 3.9 more planets worth of natural resources. So clearly, NASA's good, but they're not that good. I don't think they're going to find 4 new planets here in the short term. So what are we going to be able to do? We're going to have to renew the natural resources. So these batteries all have materials in them, whether it's cobalt, zinc, manganese, nickel. These are all things that are mined out of the ground to begin with. So by recycling, we can start to address some of the natural resource concerns that we have. So what's it look like here in the United States? We've got 2 states that regulate batteries pretty heavily. So if you have a vape shop in Vermont or California, you're required to have a battery recycling program. The lightly blue shaded states have a battery law that generally pertains to lead acid, so your car battery or a bigger one. The darker blue, which Florida's included, actually has battery bills that include rechargeable batteries like lithium ion. So there is a regulatory compliance piece to this above and beyond kind of doing the right thing. You know, here there's a regulatory basis. And this next slide shows that, you know, Europe is way ahead of us in terms of collections. And there's some reasons why Europe is way ahead of us in terms of collection, notwithstanding, you know, the size. But I think what this chart shows is that, you know, this is going to get more colored, and these numbers are going to get bigger in the United States, because that's just the nature of how battery collections work. We were talking yesterday, there's anywhere from 2, for sure, of 18650, which is the common type used, 2 billion of those cells put on the market. And those 2 billion cells are part of a 5.6 billion battery market for lithium ion. So the numbers are just big, and so they're going to continue to grow. So how do we deal with that? We're really trying to be innovative and focused. So when we get these pails back, the battery chemistry determines what the best option is for processing and reclamation, and possibly eventually reuse. So everything from data analytics on where the batteries come from and telling us what the potential of that battery might be, up to artificial intelligence. We have the only sorting machine in North America that uses AI to rapidly go through and look at the battery and identify it by brand. So just another service overview. So this one's kind of salesy and not super relevant to this conference, but the fact that we manage the batteries, all batteries, including the Tesla battery, all the way down, it just makes us really good at battery recycling. So I think the takeaway from this slide is that we can offer the vape industry a good partnership for their recycling needs. So specifically, this is what the program would look like. This is what James is advocating. So we've got this actual physical container. So this would be what would come to your vape shop and what would come back to us for recycling. We do offer, I don't know if this has a laser pointer, but you can see kind of the tall column there. So some companies like that because that's something you can put in the lobby and you can kind of invite either employees or customers to add. And then what you would do is you would take the batteries out of that visually more appealing stand, put them in your pail, and then those would go back. Our batteries, there's a special permit, so there's kind of two regulatory agencies that have oversight over batteries. One is the EPA, and then the other one is the Department of Transportation. And we kind of got you covered on both sides, up to and including a Department of Transportation special permit. A phenomenon that's happening around, and James has talked about this, 195 incidents. I was on a call yesterday with the California Recycling, their EPA, and basically lithium-ion fires are becoming a bigger and bigger issue. Some of those batteries, the iPhone battery, you can see when the battery is problematic because it'll actually swell and distort. And Samsung had a very notable recall of their batteries. When you're getting on a plane, the flight attendant's asking if you had a Samsung battery. So these are batteries that they're damaged, they're defective, or they're part of a return. Whenever those or that is that's the issue that you have to contend with, what we want to offer is a more robust process. So you wouldn't necessarily want to use the pail for that. You would want to go ahead and purchase a special DDR kit. One of the things that we talked about yesterday, though, was we've been working with a company that has a really state-of-the-art fire suppression media. And so as a further risk mitigation factor, in addition to the recycling, we could add that to the containers if that's something that the vape industry felt was an advantage. So when these pails come to you, you can set up what's called our Smart Recycle system, and that system basically enables the battery to be picked up. As soon as it's received back at our facility, that triggers a reorder. So the next pail comes to you, you don't have to go online, you don't have to place the order, and then all your documentation, your certificate of recycling that James was talking about. And one of the advantages to coming down here was in brainstorming with you, maybe we want something maybe that's a little more decorative that can be out front in the shop that, not only would you have your documentation to be able to show regulators or authority folks that you're doing the right thing, but then also there's a marketing piece to let your customers know that you care about the environment and you're incurring costs to do that.
And one more reason we need to look at this recycling piece is there's an organization out there that is targeting our industry concerned with loose batteries. They want to get rid of them. And if we don't start doing this, they're going to use the fact that we don't do this against us. So we need to be smarter, more forward-thinking, and look at stuff like this. But
no, it's a great point. The industry is advocating embedded batteries. So historically, that's kind of a switcheroo for them, where before in the 1990s, part of the 1996 Battery Management Act, which enabled, at the time, what were hazardous batteries to come in for recycling, was the fact that they were easily removable from the device that they powered. So now they've kind of done a 180 on that. So yeah, that's another issue that you would have to contend with. So when we get these batteries back, and certainly, you know, if you wanted to get into the weeds with me on all the processing, I'm a nerd. I like to talk about it, so I'd be happy to do that. But just to kind of give you a sense so you could let your customers know, when the batteries come back to us, we're either going to process those batteries or we're going to work with a partner company that does. So what this is showing is the alkaline, zinc carbon, we process those. Anything with a green, the nickel metal hydride, we process those. The reason lithium ions noted in yellow there is I think that within the next couple years, we'll have a processing. We're right now doing trial to figure out what the trial loads, to figure out kind of what the best process is for that. But in the gray, you see items like lead, nickel, cadmium, and mercury. Those are all EPA hazardous materials. You've got to have special permits. We're not interested in getting into that. There's companies out there that do a really good job of processing those types of batteries. So we'll make sure that if you send us a lead acid battery, that lead acid battery will get to an approved smelter and be managed properly. So just again to highlight, you know, what we do with alkaline as an example of, well, what do you mean by processing? So what we do is we'll take in your remote control battery, all right? Your remote control battery has zinc and manganese. And what we're able to do is mechanically chop up that battery and separate the zinc and manganese portion of the battery, and then that becomes a feedstock for the zinc sulfate fertilizer market. So corn needs zinc to grow, soybeans, an Ohio crop, needs manganese to grow. So what you're able to do is to take this old battery that would have went into the landfill, zinc's in deficit globally, you're able to then take those zinc units, give them to this company that can then manufacture, so your old battery stuff doesn't go on the ground, it becomes part of a feedstock to make zinc sulfate fertilizer, which is really important, which helps corn to grow. Globally, there's some health benefits to that. So that's an example of where, you know, we kind of see things as a value step up. And eventually, we would look at separating the zinc and manganese to go back into new batteries. Lithium ion, the batteries that you have by and large as an industry. So in the column where it talks about secondary commodities, cobalt is the essential ingredient in these lithium ion batteries. Cobalt, 60% of the world's supply comes from a place called the Democratic Republic of Congo, which if you check, it's really neither of those things. 25-30% of that global 60% is sourced by what they euphemistically refer to as artisanal mining, which is a guy with a shovel, or unfortunately it's a kid with a shovel. So cobalt is a really critical material, especially when you start thinking about the fact that the car companies are going to use these in the electric vehicles. So recycling cobalt can really be an important story. It can really help make a difference. And what it's done for us as a company is, independent of recycling the cobalt, I've been kind of point person on taking out a few initiatives where, you know, these kids mine cobalt because they can't afford to go to school. So we've been working with some different NGOs to try and find some ways to fund these kids getting to go to school and not have to mine cobalt. So there's, the battery recycling is a part of a much bigger story. So that slide was kind of out of place because that just tells you that when we use an outside partner, we're going to vet that outside partner. There's a whole bunch of standards in our industry that tell us who the good producers are and who aren't. So
everything on that slide's great, but that yellow M up there, being an Ohio State guy, I'm not a huge fan of Michigan.
I know. I'm an Ohio State guy. It's just bittersweet.
It's kind of staring at me.
It is. And you know, the saddest part is like, it's a great university. It's killing me. But we work with the University of Michigan, which is about 45 minutes down the road. And we've got an actual research department now. That's been one of the things that's grown. And so one of the things that we're looking at is, you know, new technology to try to become more safe. So when we bring all these lithium-ion batteries, we have to store them until we can process them. So we're actually developing some gas sniffing technologies because, again, the fires pose the most existential threat. And when you consolidate these things, that threat goes up. So we're actively looking at technology to help us do that. And again, this is just to highlight a picture of there's some swollen cells. But lithium battery safety is really going to be important. And so I think, co-branding potentially as an industry product, these certificates of recycling that you can show, but then also adding a certain amount of this cell block material to now accomplish, safety while you're waiting to recycle, I think are really kind of the big takeaways of coming down here.
Right. Does anybody have any questions so far on battery safety or recycling? We got one out here.
Hello. So when the battery's in the device and you want to recycle it, should I disassemble the device and cut out the battery and throw it in there?
Yeah, it's a great point, and we chatted about this yesterday because that's going to be an issue with the coils and the nicotine. We don't want the nicotine.
And the batteries themselves, like when they're touching and stuff like that, they're not going to vent?
Yeah, clearly you have to tape or bag the battery. So to protect that terminal from coming in contact with another battery or metal. So that's really an important.
So with the kit, they send you some tape. So you unscrew the bottom of the device. Normally, that's where the screws are for the internal batteries. Take it apart, rip it from the contact points, and then just tape the wires on the top and the bottom. That way they're not going to touch.
I think that was more so his question is on the internal batteries. Should we be removing them or just sending you the whole entire unit?
They definitely want them removed. Again, that's for safety reasons. Plus, they can't do anything with the casing at all. So that's just one step we've got to take.
So every single battery has to be individually sealed?
Every individual top and bottom needs to be taped off so they don't make connection.
Okay, guys, I actually have these containers in my store, and just so you know, they come equipped with a little roll of tape inside. Yep. They also have a directional sheet as to what the actual process is.
A poster that we're going to be working on redoing for our industry specifically.
Right, and then also, just a side note on the internal battery devices, it also makes your container weigh less.
Yes.
So this container is based on weight when it goes through the postal system to get delivered back to them. So obviously we can get more batteries in the container if we don't have the body of the mod itself.
Correct, and they also come with prepaid return sticker on them, so it doesn't cost you anything to ship them back. Any other questions about battery recycling safety? Yes, Mr. Orlando. Hold on. So on these pails, you get the prepaid return address label, but you also get a certificate of reclamation, which that gives you a ton of credit or attaboys from your local legislators because you're forward thinking enough to talk about, hey, I'm going to protect these harmful chemicals from getting back into the earth. We need to be smarter about the way we operate our business. We need to continue to evolve, be more forward thinking, be more conscientious. So we've got to do things like that, like this. This pail costs $70 each time you purchase one. To me, that is a steal because you're investing in your industry to be safer. You don't want to pawn your batteries off on battery, what is it called? The other battery place? Batteries Limited or whatever they are. Batteries Plus. You don't want to pawn your batteries off on them because it's not their problem. This is an industry-wide issue that we've created by having these devices. We need to take the step forward to protect them and protect ourselves. And we also want to get credit for what we do.
So with the FDA regulations saying that we're not allowed to touch any of these devices, are we allowed to go in there and take out the battery?
This has already been a finished product, and it's already worked its course out, so absolutely. You're not selling it. You're sending it to them to have them recycle it.
Right. This is a product that's deemed unusable. This
Correct.
is not a new product that's fresh out of the package.
And we're actually talking to a couple, or Shane is going to talk to a couple distribution companies about them offering these pails through them. So that hopefully will be introduced here in the next couple months. But that's something that we're looking at doing to make it easier so we can get more shops that we can't touch every day. But if somebody has 20,000 customers on their list, that's a huge opportunity for us to keep those batteries from hitting the recycling or hitting the landfills and going to the recycling center. Any other questions? I want to thank you guys. I want to thank VAPEVENT for having us here. Dolores, thank you for your help getting this all organized. And guys, just remember to stay safe, keep thinking about protecting the industry, and do something good every day. Thank you.